Well, good morning. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, May 7th, 2026. Beautiful day outside, 50 degrees, a little bit colder. I think it's going to start warming up now. Whatever cold front had been coming through is now gone, and so it'll start to warm up. And I don't know if we'll get another cool day for a while. But it's good that it's lasted this long. I mean, it's really been, it was really quite nice yesterday, so I enjoyed it. We are entering into the end of the school year. Basically, I think we have about 2 more weeks left, and then we are done. My lovely wife is very, very, very busy at the end of the school year. I've got a few things that I'm doing. I'm going to Fellowship of Christian Bolts up at Micah Mountain. I'll be talking to them today. And then we have worship this weekend. And the big thing is in a couple weeks I go to summer camp. And so we'll see how that goes. Also, let's do birthdays today. None today, but tomorrow on the 8th is Cassidy Arona and Jessica Berry. And then on Saturday is, Cassidy Arona, but Jessica, her mom, is on the Saturday, and Wyatt Lau is on Saturday. And then the next birthday is next week. So I'm going to close that out. If you know those people, wish them happy birthday. Let's go ahead and get into our study. We are getting rapidly to the close of Deuteronomy, and we started into the blessings that Moses gave to the tribes of Israel, and it is interesting that the tribes are still there, and yet the people for whom those tribes are named, the 12 brothers of Jacob, of the 12 sons of Jacob, the brothers of Joseph, they have long been gone. We don't know exactly how long the Israelites were in Egypt, but it had to be a while from them to get from favored status, loved guests, to slaves. I mean, it probably didn't happen overnight, although it could have. It's just not written as to how long it took. I'm assuming it probably took a number of generations. And yet, throughout those numbers of generations, the tribes of Israel maintained their identity. And now here, as they enter into the promised land, that identity will associate them with the parcel of land within the promised land. And Moses is handing out blessings to each of those tribes. And we've already gone through a number of them, and we left off at verse 17, and now we're going to continue, and we're going to pick up in verse 18 and see what his blessing is to the tribes of Zebulun and Issachar. About Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out, and you, Issachar, in your tents. They will summon peoples to the mountain, and there offer the sacrifices of the righteous. They will feast on the abundance of the seas, on the treasures hidden in the sand." So these are 2 brothers, Zebulun and Issachar. Is it a car? Yes, it's a car. Is it a train? No, it's not a train. It's a car. Sorry. Zebulun, Issachar. Rejoice in your going out and in your tents. They will summon people to the mountains, and there offer sacrifices to the righteous. They'll feast on the abundance of the seas and the treasures hidden in sand. Just a blessing about how they will. Nothing, about Benjamin. He had a little bit of a backstory, and Joseph. Reuben was the eldest. Levi was the priest. A lot of these other ones are brothers, but there's not a whole lot written about what's special about them. But here, it appears that they will have some sort of mountain terrain, and that they will summon the people to the mountain terrain. Verse 20, about Gad, he said, "Blessed is he who enlarges Gad's domain. Gad lives there like a lion, tearing at arm or head. He chose the best land for himself. The leader's portion was kept for him. When the heads of the people assembled, he carried out the Lord's righteous will and his judgment concerning Israel. So a little bit of the backstory about Gad. They will be blessed, and anybody who blesses who helps Gad enlarge their domain will be blessed. But Gad is like a lion, tearing out an arm or head. About Dan. About Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's cub, springing out of Bashan. About Naphtali, he said, Naphtali is abounding with the favor of the Lord. He is full of his blessing. He will inherit southward to the lake. So a little bit about Dan and Naphtali. Dan is like a cub, springing out of Bashan. Naphtali will inherit south to the lake, which is interesting. Asher. About Asher, he said, most blessed of sons is Asher. Let him be favored by his brothers, and let him bathe his feet in oil. The bolts of your gates will be iron and bronze, and your strength will equal your days. There is no one like God of Jeshurun, who rides. That's the end of Asher. Basically, Asher is the favorite of brothers. Now, what's interesting is we do Myers-Briggs personality profiles, and you find out if you're an ENFP or something like that. And it appears to me, as I read this, that each of the tribes had, because they came from the brother who started that tribe or who was the father of that tribe, whatever the brother's characteristic was kind of carried down a little bit. I'm probably reading more into the text than I should, but I get the sense that each tribe has its unique characteristic and identity. But for example, we're a fighting tribe. We tear off arms or legs. That to me says that you're a very physical, like to go to war type of tribe. The other tribes have their own characteristics. The one tribe, I think the one tribe that's missing is Simeon. I don't see Simeon here. They get the general blessing, but it doesn't appear that they are called out. And each tribe has their own blessing from Moses. Moses wants to send them all off before he dies with a blessing, and he does so. And then he goes back to the whole nation of Israel in verse 26. There's no one like the God of Jeshurun, who rides across the heavens to help you, and on the clouds is his majesty. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will drive your enemies out. He will drive out your enemies before you, saying, destroy them. So Israel will live in safety. Jacob will dwell secure in a land of grain and new wine, where the heavens drop dew. I think this is probably more of a fact that because they are children of Israel, children of God, and God's beloved, that they'll dwell in safety because God is with them. But nobody ever gets to dwell in safety, not in a sinful condition, in a broken condition of man. We're always trying to fight for survival. It's just the way it is in our world. Verse 29. Blessed are you, Israel. Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord. He is your shield and helper and your glorious sword. Your enemies will cower before you, and you will tread on their heights. So a little bit of a blessing to Israel, saying you are a favored nation. It's interesting that he's not saying keep the law. You would think that Moses would end by saying, follow the Lord, follow his precepts, do all these things. But basically, he's setting them off with a bit of hope. Here's who you are. Know that you're a child of God. And I think following the law is important. They need to follow the law. But probably deep down in their hearts, they need to recognize and remember that first and foremost, they're children of God. And when you first and foremost remember that you're a child of the creator of the universe, then everything else flows out of that, including keeping the law. So I don't blame Moses for not saying one last time, follow the law. I mean, he's been basically saying that all of Deuteronomy. These are just the blessings at the end. All right. Chapter 34. Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab to the top of Pisgah across from Jericho. And there the Lord showed him the whole land, from Gilead to Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev and the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms as far as Zoar. Then the Lord said to him, "This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it." So he goes up to the top of the mountain. He's on the east side of the Jordan River, and he can kind of see the whole entire promised land. From the Mediterranean, from the south to the north, this is the land I have promised you. And follow my precepts, follow my laws. I will be God. You'll be my people. That's all it is. And Moses does not get to enter into the promised land. And that's okay. I don't see a reason why he's done what God has asked him to do. He has rescued them, or brought the power of God to rescue them out of slavery in Egypt. He's let them wander through the wilderness. He's put organization and structure. He's got a leader that he has kind of tapped on the shoulder with Joshua to take over, but he himself will not enter into the promised land. But the fact is, he does enter into the promised land because he goes to be with God forever. And that truly is the ultimate promised land. Even though it appears that the promised land is a great land, the true promised land is not a physical location on the earth, but a destination into the arms of God. All right, verse 5. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. He buried him in Moab, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, but to this day no one knows where his grave is. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. The Israelites grieved for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days until the time of weeping and mourning was over. So now we have the death of Moses. This is an epic journey. Have you ever read a book and when you put it down, you're like, wow, I just engulfed my life into a story that is now ended. I think the first time for me that this happened was when I read J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, where it's 3 volumes. It's a long book, and you get to the end of it and you realize it's over, and we are now at the end of the story of Moses, and the Israelites continue, but his story is over, from him being put in a basket. To getting into Egypt, to leaving because of the cruelty to the slaves, to meeting God, to coming back, to rescuing the people, and to wander with them in the wilderness for 40 years. And now that whole entire story. There's basically from Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the whole entire thing revolves around Moses. Genesis doesn't revolve around Moses. That's a totally different story. That's leading up to Abraham. But the story of Moses basically encompasses 4 of the 5 books of the Torah, and now he is dead. The story continues on with Joshua, but this great leader that God picked to do this incredible work, he is now gone to be with God. He dies in Moab on the east side of the Jordan River. They buried him, but unmarked grave, which is interesting. I suppose that is a very unusual thing, that they would bury him and not come and make pilgrimages to the gravesite of Moses. But But I don't think God wants them to do that. Moses was there for a time when God needed him as a tool to lead the people from slavery in Egypt through the promised land, right to the doorstep. But now they have to move forward. They can't look back. With Joshua leading them, they're going to go into the promised land, and a whole new chapter of Israel is going to begin. And Moses, while he did great things, is not the future. The people of Israel are the future, and Jesus is the future. I suppose you could. There's the one image that I have in my head is when Washington was leading the people in the United States. He did not want to call himself something that sounded like royalty. He didn't want to be the king. He knew that he wouldn't be a king, that his term of service was temporary and not until he died. And he looked around for a name to call himself and came up with president. And so he was the first president of the United States, the first president of an organization. I mean, it's different from king. And I almost get the sense that, Washington had no descendants. He had no heirs. And that was another, in my opinion, providence from God, that the leader who calls himself the president and not the king and has no heirs, so there can't possibly be anybody in his family line that could be the next king of the United States. This was a radical departure from how it normally happened. Well, the same thing is true for Moses. He is basically basically the leader at the time, but there's no descendant that's going to lead. The descendant is Joshua, and he's left behind in a place of honor, but the location is not known. This almost seems like a brand new, fresh start for Israel, to put Moses aside, to celebrate what he did, but then to move forward as a nation. They grieve for 30 days until the time of weeping is over, and then they're on the move. Verse 9. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what the Lord commanded Moses. So I think this idea of a succession plan was very, very, very important. Moses knew that Joshua was going to lead the people into the promised land, so he places his hands on them. He brings the whole Israelite community, in my opinion, before to see, okay, I'm dying. The person that's going to lead you is Joshua. And so follow Joshua. And the people do. They have so much respect for Moses and probably to Joshua also, but that this is the one that is chosen to lead, so we will follow him. And I think that one of the jobs of a great leader is to figure out a succession so that when that leader dies, the people know who's going to lead afterwards. And here in the United States, we have elections, and in other places around the world, it's not. It's usually a family line that when the leader dies, it's one of his children that takes over. And if he has no children, then it's somebody else. The idea that we elect our leader and say, you're the one that's going to lead us for a period of time is very unique to human history. And yet, this is, in a way, Moses is not choosing his child. He's choosing a very, very capable leader in Joshua. All right. Verse 10. Since then, no prophet has arisen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials and to his whole land. For no one has ever known the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. And thus ends the Pentateuch, the story of Moses, the story of God's people to the doorstep of the promised land. we should feel a bit of gratefulness that God brought Moses into this land to lead the people. He was a great leader. I think because he was educated in Pharaoh's court, I think he was smart. I think he was very well organized. I think he had the ability to lead incredibly well. He had his imperfections, but he did what God called him to do, and he was faithful to the end. And 120 years is not you could look at that and say maybe it's metaphorical, but I don't think so. I think he really did live to 120 years. Can you imagine at 80 setting out into the promised land? It's hard for us to understand now, but because we don't live in that time. But I think that God protected and brought Moses through the promised land, even in old age. And there's something to be said about the wisdom of old age, and I'm way far away from that kind of wisdom. I mean, there's a certain wisdom I think that people get when they get well into their 80s that Moses had. He was done with his go-go years, and he was into his wisdom leading years, I guess you could say. All right, so that's the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and the next book is Joshua. We've already gone through Joshua. If you want to see Joshua, there's another study on that. And Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. I've already done all those. I haven't done all the prophets yet, and that's something that's on my list to do. But I think we'll jump into the New Testament, take a look at a New Testament book next time we get together and start that. But when did we start? I think we started this in January a year ago. So it has taken us a long time to get from Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. It's taken quite a long time to get through these books, but it was fun, and I've enjoyed it. Knowledge comes when we get long in the tooth. Love that old saying. Yes. Indeed. All right, let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for leading us through this journey to study your people from slavery in Egypt to the doorstep of the promised land. And we thank you for the life of Moses that you gave to your people. And we thank you for your people who brought forth your son into our world to redeem us, to show us how to love each other, and to make it possible so we could live with you forever. Watch over us until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we will get together on a new book on Monday, and hope you have a great weekend. It should be a phenomenally great weekend. Maybe starting to get a little bit warm, but that's okay. We'll get together. And thank you so much for joining me. And I'll tell you all about the weekend when we get together on Monday. But until then, God's peace. We'll see you later.